and he was like, "Yo, I need to use the phone," and I didn't get off the phone. And I had used the phone like 5, 6, 7 calls in a row. After I get off the phone, and phone shut off like a half an hour before lockdown. He comes to me and tells me, "Next time I tell you to get off the phone, get off the phone." When he said that, I was like, in my head, I was like, "Who are you talking to?" He's a grown man, though. I went into my cell, closed the door, and started using the bathroom. I just heard the door creak open, and that was it. He came in, hit me in the head with a plunger.
A plunger?
And, yeah, the handle was like a wooden plunger, and then we started fighting. I was defending myself. That's when I realized that I was 15. I might have thought in my head that I was an adult, and I had fights with grown men prior to this, but it was different in the street.
On today's episode, we have Frank Rodriguez, a former addict with a YouTube following of nearly 200,000 subscribers, to share his story of addiction, surviving immigration jail at 15 years old, building a criminal enterprise within the prison walls during his second prison bid, and how he was able to turn his trauma into a message of hope for others. Listen up, everyone. Please join me in thanking our delicious sponsor, Factor. Choose from 34+ weekly flavor-packed, dietitian-approved meals ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Head to factormeals.com/lockedin50 and use code LOCKEDIN50 to get 50% off. I love Factor, and I can't wait for you guys to try it. They've been a huge supporter of the show, and their meals taste absolutely phenomenal. Sit back, relax, and get ready to lock in with Frank Rodriguez. All right, Frank, let's get into it, man. Welcome to the show. You're coming to us today from Philly area, right? Pennsylvania?
Yeah, Central Pennsylvania. I do a lot of work in Philly. I moved outside of Philly though when I got clean, and just to get some get away from the chaos.
Well, we appreciate you coming, making the drive out here. It's a pleasure to have you, and excited to jump into your story. Let's get into the beginning of it. Where are you from? Where were you born? What's like that early childhood life like for you?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1980 to, my mother and my father. Growing up, my family, everybody was addicts. Everybody was addicted to heroin. Literally the only person that wasn't in my household was my grandmother, my mother's mom. Besides that, my mother, my father, my aunts, my uncles, everybody was addicted to heroin. And at the time that, in the early 80s where I grew up was the Williamsburg area, south side of Brooklyn, where now it's like super gentrified, real nice. But at the time it was a real big open air drug market, pretty much like in Kensington, it's it was like that. So, addiction was prevalent, violence was extremely prevalent. So we moved out of there when I was about 7 years old. My father, he was in the streets real heavy at the time, and the time it was a lot of gangs in New York. And he got shot in the throat, so he was paralyzed in the hospital. And then my parents realized that it was time for a change, so moved to Pennsylvania. And it was a change of location, but everything still sort of continued. The drugs still continued. My father, at that time, he regained like movement to his legs and stuff like that, so he could walk around, but you would have very pronounced limp and all that. So through work, he started to realize that the people, how easy access guns were in Pennsylvania, and they weren't like that in New York. So they started, him and some of his friends, and also my uncle started trafficking guns and stuff. And like I said, it was a change of scenery, but not a change in behavior.
How old were you when you moved to Pennsylvania?
8 years old.
8 years old.
Yeah.
So like your whole life, it was always surrounded by crime
Yeah.
and drugs.
Yep.
Do you think your parents' addiction trickled down to you? How you would get into doing drugs?
No. So if anything, it was the opposite. I seen what drugs did, and I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be. I didn't want anything to do with it like that. When I was a teenager, I smoked marijuana socially and stuff like that, but it wasn't. It wasn't. Like I seen what my parents did, and like it planted a seed in me. I didn't realize though that the effects that me having two parents that are addicts, hereditary. That addiction being something that I have to worry about down the line, because I didn't pick up any hard drugs until in my early 20s, and my mother was killed in a car accident. I had to identify her body. So that night I tried to go to sleep, couldn't sleep. All I seen was my mom laying on that corner slab. And then 2 days later, a family friend that was a nurse gave me some pills and was like, "Here, why don't you take these? These will help you to get some sleep." And she was it wasn't like she was sneaking me the pills for me to get high or anything. It was literally just to be like, "You need to get some sleep. You need to relax." And that ended up, turning into pill addiction and pills. Let's snorting heroin, then let's shooting heroin.
So that traumatic experience was like the trigger for you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, 100%. I think if that wouldn't have happened, I would have never, because I had a kidney surgery and I was prescribed Percocets, and I literally took one and left it in my medicine. I was like, I didn't like it. I was like, this put me to sleep. I left it in my medicine cabinet for like 2 years, and then I reached for them when those 3 pills ran out that she gave me.
What kind of kid were you before you started the drugs? Like, how would your friends describe you if we had them here today?
So earlier, all the way up from very early, I always had a problem with authority, male authority, because of my father. My father was physically abusive to me. He was very physically abusive. So, and I seen that with my mother also. So I was the type of kid that thought I could solve my problems with my hands, and so that was, I was always fighting. Violence was very prevalent in my life, and because when my father and my mother, they divorced when I was young, maybe 10 years old, if that. My mom didn't have money. She was a nurse, but she was a functioning addict. So all the money went to drugs. So I started selling drugs at a very young age just to literally help my mom out, give her a couple extra dollars. I used to put money in an envelope and leave it on her dresser and write on there, don't ask me any questions. And she wouldn't.
Do you think she knew what you were doing?
Yeah, absolutely.
It must have taken her a lot of strength to not say anything to you, because she knew she was probably in a cross path of, she needed the money, but she also didn't want you to do something illegal to get you the money.
Yeah. And once again, like, crime was so prevalent in my family. Drug dealing wasn't frowned upon. Everybody, all the males in my family, sold drugs, were involved in some type of way up to that point. So it wasn't, it wasn't looked upon. It wasn't like a normal family where you'd be like, oh, something's wrong. It was, all right, if you're going to do it, be smart, that type of thing.
Were your friends' families like that at all?
No.
So did you envy your friends at all for having like a normal family?
I did. The friends that I had that had 2 parents in there, I did. And the ones that even looked like they sort of lived a normal life, like I didn't like to have people come over to my house, because the police are raiding the house on a normal basis. To me that was embarrassing. And also, once I got a little bit older, when I was younger and I'd see my mom nodding off and, have to take the cigarette off her or pick it up from the floor, stuff like that, I thought that was normal. I thought that's what happened in everybody's home. Until I got a little bit older and started going to other friends' house, and I was like, hold up, this, what's going on in my house ain't going on in everybody's house. So I started to realize, all right, something's a little different here. And yeah, I was a little envious of, just normal families.
I think that's really powerful to reflect on, because us as kids growing up, we're in school with individuals and we judge people based on their looks or their clothing or their attitude and stuff. And we don't realize that they could be living a very different life, even though they're literally feet away in the same town.
Yeah.
They could have a whole different experience.
Absolutely. And I think especially when we're young, right? We think what we're exposed to, we think that's normal until we start to get a little bit older and realize, like, hold up, this isn't normal, Yeah.
And it makes you wonder how many decisions are influenced by other people's actions, like when they're watching that.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you thought that was normal, that influenced your decisions to come.
Absolutely.
So if anyone was watching you, you could have had an influence, and even your parents' decisions that influenced you. And it's just like a whole line. It develops like that chaos that you and a lot of other former addicts talk about. That's like a trigger for them in their life.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's like chaos that we crave at times. Like I'm very comfortable in chaos, where other people would be like, get nervous or get scared. For me, that's my comfort zone. I'd be like, all right, this is like home damn near.
And you've also seen shit. I feel like the people that have gone through shit, the people that go to prison, whether you go away for a month or 10 years or whatever, you just, it makes you in this group of individuals that understand. Like, I understand you because I've been where you are, and other people don't get that.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
What was your relationship with your father after your mother died? Did it get better or did it get worse?
So for a very short period of time, it did. Me and my father, so right before my mother passed, me and my mom I wasn't speaking to her. Let me rephrase that. My sister had a boyfriend that he was a big drug dealer, and I ended up robbing him probably about 3 months before my mother passed. And my mom was upset because up to that time I had came home, I was doing good. I got my own little apartment, I got a car, and I was just setting a foundation. So my mom got upset with me and disappointed. She was like, what are you doing? You just came home from doing, I up to that point I had, just came home from doing 8 or 9 years in jail. And she was like, you're doing good. What are you doing? But I seen it as her taking my sister's side, and that was probably my justification also. So I stopped talking to her. And then Thanksgiving comes around, I don't go to her house. And prior to this, we're very close family. Thanksgiving, I don't come. December 13th is her birthday, don't show up. Christmas, don't show up. New Year's, family had a sort of lie to get me in the same room with her. And then when I seen her, I left. And then she followed me outside real quick and was like, look, I love you. She was, just was like, I love you, miss you. And then I left. And then the next day, something didn't sit well in my stomach, in my soul. I just knew something. I had no idea, what was going to happen, obviously, but something just didn't sit right and was like, you need to stop being stubborn and go speak to your mother, and then the next day I went, to go speak to her. As I was coming into the house, she was going out. So she said, just hold on, I'll be right back. I was like, all right. And next thing I know, I'm getting a call saying, she was involved in a car accident, is dead.
Wow. Do you carry a lot of regret from that?
It's gotten better. I did for years. It's gotten a lot better. Where, I try not to live with regrets now. I just realize that, stuff happens in life. We can either let it take control of us or we can take control of it. But I did. That was, the source of my addiction, source of a lot of anger. Everything. I was literally on, a path of destruction after that. And, I just learned to realize, I don't control nothing but, between fingertip to fingertip, that's all. Everything else, I have to learn to accept, even if I don't like it.
Now, regardless of the fact that your father abused you and it was a household that wasn't necessarily normal, do you think, looking back on it now, that you loved your parents?
Yeah, absolutely. My mom was like my heart. We had the type of relationship. I didn't really lie to my mom, hide stuff from her. She could ask me, and I'd be like, yeah. So we had, we being in jail. She was. I could count on, seeing her once, every month or something like that. So it was. Me and my mom had a very, very good, close relationship. Me and my father, not so much.
But you still loved him.
Yeah.
Why do you think we love people that hurt us?
I don't know. Be honest with you, I don't know. Like even my father now, I haven't talked to him in years. And it's funny, my son, just yesterday, my son has never met my father. My son's 10 years old. He's never met my father. And he just asked me, he said, Dad, let me ask you something. He's like, you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but where's your dad at? I said, well, where do you think he's at? I just wanted to see what he had to say. And he said, maybe like in Florida, someplace nice, because I know he's in a wheelchair and maybe he like wants to enjoy the later years of his life and stuff like that. And I just wanted to hear his perspective without being influenced, because I don't talk about my dad to him at all. I won't allow them to meet, just because of inconsistencies. Like, you're not going to come in my son's life and then not be around for a year, especially kids that age. He wants a grandfather. He doesn't have a grandfather, from not my side or his mother's side. So, he wants a grandfather, I'm sure.
So even to this day, you still would say that you love your father?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I care about him. I don't want nothing bad to happen to him, but,
Would you say it's like that concept of loving someone from a distance?
Yeah.
It makes you think, like when you go back to it, like even the people that create us or that give us a lot of harm and difficulty in our lives, we tend to gravitate towards those people.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder, like, if it's just the concept of a father, you know what I'm saying? Or
like in love with the idea of it.
Yeah. Because, I don't, like, unfortunately, if my father was to pass away tomorrow, my life don't change. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
There's a lot of baggage that comes with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's so much to decompress and think about. So for an outsider, if you told them that, they're gonna be like, you got to see your father, this and that.
Of course.
But when you sit down, you talk about everything that he put you through. It's different. But it doesn't sound like you have like anger towards him.
Yeah, no. But I did for years, and then I realized once again I can't control nothing. So it's like my father didn't have a father. You see what I'm saying? So he don't know how to be a father. I didn't realize all this stuff until I started having children and started becoming a father and realized, like, okay, I think we either use our past and, the stuff that maybe we didn't have, we can either use it like as fuel, or we can use it as excuses to continue the cycle, or we could use it as fuel to be like, no, that's not it. That's not
I
what
love
I'm gonna
that.
allow,
Yeah, I believe in that heavily. Like anytime there's pain,
Mm-hmm.
you take that shit. That's unlimited motivation.
Absolutely.
100%. Like you can't find better. No energy drink, nothing.
Yeah.
Like
nothing.
Not even looking at other people. It's pain that will cause someone to change.
Yep.
Did you graduate high school?
Nah, I went to jail. I was 15 years old.
15, you went to jail.
Yeah, I was 15,
Walk us
certified
through
as an adult.
Yeah, walk us through what happened.
So I was 15, summer of, it would have been, like 94, 95. I was starting a new school, and I wanted money for clothes. I wanted money to, to have nice clothing like everybody else in the school. Prior to that, I had been arrested, for selling drugs numerous times. Had been in boot camps, placements, foster homes, secure lockups, everything you could think of. And I was selling drugs prior to that, and I had made money selling drugs, and then I met like my first serious girlfriend, and she was like, "Look, I don't want you to sell drugs anymore." So I stopped selling drugs, and I think I was also like craving some normalcy, you know. And right around this time, my mom had started getting clean, and summer was coming to an end, and I realized, I had just got kicked out of, expelled from the school that I was in ever since I was young I got into a fight with a teacher. And I was starting a new school district, and I wanted to make a good impression. So I said, I know, my mother or family, I'm not going to get, nice clothing. So I decided, all right, let me go and do a robbery. I had a friend that worked at a Burger King, and he was like, look, these certain days they don't deposit their money, I guess, every day. So he's like, if you wait for this day, it's 3 or 4 days added up, and it's going to be $20,000, so that's what we decided to do. Me and 2 other friends, they got caught right at the scene. I ended up getting picked up like a week later.
Wait, you robbed a Burger King?
Yep.
How does that go down? Like, how do you stage a robbery at a Burger King?
So I waited till the store was closed. I know they got to come out and deposit that bank, that bag of money. So I'm waiting for them, to come out, deposit the money. It was 1:00 in the morning, and we wait. It's an armed robbery. So the thing that prior to that, there was a couple other armed robberies that had taken place right in that same area, and there was one of the ladies got shot in the eye. She got shot in the face, ended up losing her eye. So the police were, patrolling a little bit more. They were like, all right, let's see what's going on. So literally in the middle, as soon as I get the bag of money, I'm going to cross the street, and I almost get hit by a cop. The cop car that's just happens to be, running his route. He knows that there's been robberies at this certain time of night. Sort of the same thing. I think people going to deposit money, and literally almost, hits me as I'm going to run across the street, and then that was it from there.
But he didn't know that you robbed the place.
Nope.
So you had a gun yourself?
Yeah.
And you pointed it at the individuals to get the money?
Yeah.
Did you have the intent to use the gun at all, or you were just...
I sort of knew that in my head, we sort of knew, like, all right, this is, we don't even really have to. It's not that type of, it's not that type of party. We don't even have to use anything, force, you just go and grab it, be like, all right, let's go. Yeah, so it afterwards, I remember getting picked up and thinking, like, this turned out, it could have went very bad. It could have went very bad. Literally, when I tell you that, like, I'm running across the street and the cop car almost hit me. Where when they ended up picking me up, a week later, the cop told me, he's like, you're lucky you didn't get killed, He said, you're dressed in all black, you got a ski mask on.
You had the ski mask when the cop almost hit you?
Yeah, listen, wow. It was from here to your refrigerator.
Wow, I'm
literally
shocked that the cop didn't say anything that you had the ski mask on.
He was in his car. He's driving. Yeah. So he literally, if I would have 10 seconds either way, he would have not, he sort of like literally interrupted the robbery. 10 seconds either way, he would have went, and 10 seconds, the ladies would have been saying, yo, somebody just robbed us. You know what I mean?
Do you ever think about how they felt when you were pointing the gun at them?
Yeah, when I got older. Even at that time I did, because we didn't know exactly who it was going to be. You know what I mean? All we knew is that usually there's a male that goes with them. So in my head, that's what I was thinking. And I've always been. I grew up in a household full of sisters. I have daughters. I'm very protective over women. So that was a little weird. And but at the same time, it was like, all right, this is what it is. It's there's no turning back now. So
Did you ever get a chance to like make peace with those individuals?
no, I didn't. So for stuff like that, I always feel like I could say something. I could apologize to you. But I think the biggest thing that I could do is change behavior. You know what I mean? I can make amends with you, or I can sort of like make amends with everybody that I come in contact with. So I just
Through
try
your
to
actions, yeah.
exactly.
Actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
How much money did you end up getting when you sat down, wherever you sat down?
It was like
$23,000.
$23,000.
So you got what you were expecting to get.
Yeah.
And would you guys all meet up and start dividing it?
They got locked up.
They got caught on the scene?
They got right away from within 5 minutes.
How did
minutes.
they get caught and you got away?
I don't know, to be honest with you. Like, that's something we never spoke of. I just know. So there was, for me in my mind, you could head, if you went right, you were going to a city where I think they would expect us to come from. So I went the other way. I was like, I know they're probably going to expect, they're going to be watching for us to cross the bridge to go back to that city. So I headed the other way. And there was numerous times where they almost caught me. You know what I mean? Like one time I was laying like in a little ravine or a creek. Another time I was on top of a coal train. Like there's a power plant, and I hopped the fence over the power plant. And when I got back, my clothes were all ripped up. I was soaked. I was cut up from jumping over fences, and it was a mess.
What's your mindset? Because $23,000 is a lot for someone your age that comes from no money.
I had been selling drugs prior to that.
So you were making money.
Yeah. I had just stopped selling drugs because of my girlfriend.
Can you believe it's already time to talk about the holiday season? Wow, that actually means it's almost 1 year since launching this podcast. You might be looking for nutritious, convenient meals to keep you energized on jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service, can help you fuel up fast for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle while tackling all your holiday to-dos. Enjoy extra convenience any time of the day with an assortment of 45-plus add-ons. Choose from breakfast items like apple cinnamon pancakes, bacon and cheddar egg bites, and my favorite, the potato, bacon, and egg breakfast skillet. Head to factormeals.com/lockedin50 and use code LOCKEDIN50 to get 50% off your order. Also, make sure to check out their fresh pressed juices. They are very tasty. Are you too busy with holiday plans to cook? Or maybe you're like me and will be busy running a business, but want to make sure you're eating well? With Factor, skip the extra trip to the grocery store and the chopping, prepping, and cleaning up too, while still getting the flavor and nutritional quality you need. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes, so all you have to do is heat and enjoy. You could skip the stress of meal prepping over the holidays with Factor. Choose from 35-plus weekly flavor-packed, fresh, never frozen meals that support a healthy lifestyle and meet your meal preferences, all delivered straight to your door and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. That's right, folks, 2 minutes. Head to factormeals.com/lockedin50 and use code LOCKEDIN50 to get 50% off your order. That's code LOCKEDIN50 at factormeals.com/lockedin50 to get 50% off your order. As always, huge thanks to Factor for supporting the Locked In with Ian Bick podcast. Looking back on it, do you think that robbery was worth it for that amount of money?
No.
For everything that would come next?
Not at all.
Would you have rather you stuck with selling drugs? Do you ever think about that? What the outcome of that would have been?
No. So I always, I'm the type of person, I just realized that there's no coincidence in life for me. That's sort of the way things were supposed to go,
No, your mom died right around that time period, too.
No. After I had came home from doing that time.
How much time do you get on that first robbery?
7.5.
You got 7.5
Well,
here.
For the robbery, I got 2 years. I had ended up getting aggravated assault, and and so there was. I did 2.5 years for the robbery, and then I had time that I had got from an aggravated assault. So it came out to me doing right around 8 years, when it was all said and done, up to the point where my mom died.
Now, they sent you right away to prison?
No, so I went to juvenile lockup for 2 weeks, and then I went to a certification hearing, it's called. Had the certification hearing, and they asked my input. It was like, what do you want to do? Or, you have, I don't know how much my say counted, but they asked for my input. And I was like, I don't want to go to boot camps, send me to jail. I get, commissary and phone calls and visits. That's my mind state at that time. Not realizing what I was doing,
So they send you to a real jail after you waive your rights or whatever you do?
Yeah, so right after that hearing, if I'm not positive, like it took effect right after that hearing, I went to the county prison. The county prison I went to was also a federal holdover. So you had all INS people that just come from the feds fighting immigration, and you had people that were waiting to go to the feds. So it was different than the typical county prison. You had a lot of people that were there. They just got done doing 15, 20 years, and now they're held up for immigration because they're not residents.
Now, is there a lot of gang activity and stuff in those places?
So at the time there wasn't a lot of gangs, but it was definitely a lot of violence, a lot, because you're getting it's not just normal county prison. It's essentially like a mini federal prison, a federal penitentiary.
What was the first really crazy violent thing you saw when you were there?
I seen it was a Russian dude. He got his neck slit open, face cut up by the Russian dude was, he was probably like 6'1", 6'2". It was a little Chinese dude. They were fighting. He beat the Chinese dude up bad, and the Russian dude slept on him, and he came behind him. I was literally on the phone watching as everything was happening, and he came, slit his throat 2 or 3 times, and then slit his face. And I was there, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks.
And you're seeing that at what, 16 years old you are?
I was 16 at this time, yeah.
What do you think of that when you're seeing that at 16, just watching this all happen?
It was scary seeing it, but I had also seen, I grew up in chaos. I had seen a lot of violence. This was a little different, but it was, sort of I was like, hey, this is what it is.
And these were grown adults that were fighting.
When I went into the county prison, at the time you got a commit package with deodorant, all that little stuff, and they gave you tobacco, and they came and tried to come back and get my tobacco an hour later. They were like, hold up, you can't have that, you're a minor. And at this time, I had already knew, because when I first went in, they put me in PC because of my age. So I just took my tobacco. I was like, yeah, I'm not giving it to you. I was like, I'm old enough to be in jail, but you're going to tell me I can't smoke? They just put me in jail, but, that's not happening.
Is the system still like that, where a 16-year-old can go into a jail like this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Isn't that a flaw? Why is a 16-year-old with grown men?
Yeah, 100% I believe it is. Especially now that we understand a little bit more, brain development and all that stuff, where now it's illegal for an 18-year, somebody under 18 to be sentenced to life in prison. So that shows that we understand the justice system. We understand that, our brains don't develop at that early of an age, but we're still, sort of holding kids to those standards. So it's definitely flawed, I think. Now they have, at the time they were building in Pennsylvania, they were building a adult prison. A prison for juvenile offenders, but it was an adult prison. So, when I went, there wasn't many of us. I was the first one in that county specifically that, was sentenced as an adult, and it was, it was weird.
How was the food? Was it any good at these
Food
places?
was good, yeah.
The food was actually good? Normally
Yeah.
you hear at these like federal detention
no,
centers
no.
that it's not good.
No. So we used to have a lot of riots in there because of the food. And I always thought I just did a podcast last week, and that's the same thing somebody asked me. They was like, I was explaining to them, we have riots because of the food. And he was like, well, how did you think the food was? And I was like, I thought the food was all right, before that. But remember, I'm a kid also. These are grown men, so they're used to, and they're coming from the federal system, where, they, at the time in the federal system, they had, huge salad bars and all you could eat, basically, So
Yeah, I remember seeing a salad bar at did they have that at the place you were at?
no,
Oh, okay.
no, they didn't have that.
So why would riots, like, who started a riot over this?
It was always the Cuban dudes.
The Cuban dudes.
Yeah, it was always
how would they start? Yeah, describe what a riot would
They
go
were
like.
so back in the 80s. There was they're called the Mariel Cubans. So America, when they were the Cold War, all that stuff, Cuba and America were basically at odds. So the president, it was Carter Reagan, said any Cuban that makes it here to America, we're going to take you guys as refugees. So Fidel Castro said, okay, opened up all the jails, all the insane asylums, all the hospitals, everybody, all the sexual deviants, everybody that was the worst of the worst, and put them on boats and sent them to America and said, here, this is what you get. You want my people? Take them. So they ended up United States Penitentiary, Atlanta. They ended up, having a riot there, taking the federal prison hostage, killing guards. They were known to be wild, these Cubans. So that's the same type of Cubans that they had there. So it would always be over. They'd be like, we want more rice and we want chicken. That's literally what the riots were over. So they tell us, once again, I thought it was all right. But they'd be like, no, we're starting a riot today. The only people that can eat is if you have, diabetes or a medical condition, you're older. Anybody else, the trays come, refuse them, or, throw them. That's what it was. So they would come, eventually lieutenant would come down or the warden and be like, all right, what's going on? And everybody refused to lock up. And then, they're sliding tear gas under the door and then coming in there with the big shock shields and the batons. And
you're a part of this.
Yeah.
Because you're just thrown in. What happens if
but I was, at the time, I was like, yeah, let's go.
What if you went against that and you decide to eat? Like if you took your tray and said, fuck this, I'm eating. Like what would have happened to you?
I'm sure, you held accountable. You can't do that, So I'm sure there would have been some consequences. To me, I've always been the type of person, it don't matter, if I see something not going right with you, I'm riding with you, especially if it's against the system. I'm going with you. We don't even have to be that cool or anything like that. But if I see some type of injustice is happening with you, I'm riding.
Unless it's like you have to stay out of certain situations, though. Like if the Russian getting his throat slit, you can't get involved in that.
No, that's personal. That's something that they had going on. It was a one-on-one fight.
Now, is there politics in these county jails at all? Like you got to show paperwork, you got to ride with a certain person.
So at the time there wasn't paperwork, but everything is segregated pretty much by race. You know what I mean?
And what year was this when you went?
This was 95.
95. So it's separated by race. Like, could you talk to someone of a different color? Okay.
Yeah, you could talk, but you just, we ate with our people, housed with our people. That's just what it was. And once again, it was these people coming from federal prison. So, it was treated like, so it'd be, on the county blocks where we were, there was 2 blocks that were maximum security. And I would say, if there's 100 people on the block, there might be 5 that aren't federal or INS. So, 5 that would be from the county. So it was handled just like a federal prison. It was ran like a federal prison. Everything was the wardens that they brought in were wardens from federal prisons.
When you got there, did the Spanish guys immediately come up to you?
No, because so I was in PC until probably about 3 weeks, and what I didn't know at the time, but the jail psychologist would be in the bubble, so the bubble was tinted glass. The guards are in there. There's not guards on the block. And she would be in there and watch the way I interacted with people. So at first they let me have, my hour rec would be in the block that was locked down. It'd be people RHU, people there for PC and people there for, behavior restrictions. Then when they seen, okay, he can mingle amongst them and he's all right, then they started letting me have rec with the maximum security, and I didn't know, but the whole time they were just watching to see my interactions to be like, all right, are they going to try to take advantage of him? Are they going to put pressure on him? What's happening here? And then, literally 2 weeks later, they called me up to the psych's office and said, look, we're going to put you in population. Do you have, are you all right with that? And I had been, writing them being like, yo, I don't want to be in PC. Put me in population. I'll be fine. And so I was like, no, I'm fine with that. I was happy.
What's a PC unit for the listeners that don't know what that is?
So all it is a restricted, it's there. It was a restricted housing area. So it's just 23 hours in the cell. You get 1 hour outside of the cell a day. You're locked in the cell, It's like confinement, solitary confinement. That's what it is basically. And
do inmates get a bad rep for being in PC?
Oh yeah. If you're in PC, that's no good. You're basically saying, okay, I'm scared to live here. I'm scared to be in jail. So that's a no.
I'm surprised the prison system actually cared about your well-being to see if they'd interact.
So I didn't realize. Once again, until I got a little bit older, but I realized that, like, if anything would have happened to me, they would have been in trouble.
Now, do you think that if you were like a sex offender or something, that would have been handled totally differently?
No, I don't think so. I think if anything, they probably would have been more careful with me.
Interesting, because I'm friends with this kid that his friend recently just went to jail for sexual assault charges, and he kind of tells me what's been going on with him, about what's been happening. He's in a state jail in Connecticut, and they've been putting this kid's young. He's in his 20s or whatever, and they've been putting him in cells with murderers. He keeps getting extorted and treated like a sex offender would, but they're putting him in with guys that are never getting out of prison. So to me, it's like, yes, what he did was wrong, but why are you putting him in? If he only has a 2-year sentence, why are you putting him in with guys that have life?
Yeah. For me, I'd be like, you shouldn't have came to jail. You know what I mean? Like, we don't get to nobody else gets to choose who they're, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was like that at that age, 15. I had people that, I was celled up with people that did 20 years. I was celled up for people that were in jail for murder.
Yeah. And you weren't afraid at all?
No, I was all right. I had there was times where specifically I remember being like, I bit off more than I could chew. 100% I had that. The first fight that I had with an adult in prison, I realized that I was like, there's nothing I could do.
Yeah, what was that like, your first prison fight?
So I was 15 years old. I wasn't even 16 yet. I was on the phone, and there was this guy. He looked like the Asian guy from Bloodsport. If anybody seen that movie, it's like a famous actor. I don't know, what the ethnicity, but dude, he's big, muscle. And he was like, "Yo, I need to use the phone," and I didn't get off the phone. And I had used the phone like 5, 6, 7 calls in a row, and I could tell that he wanted to use the phone. He was like pacing next to the phone and said, "Yo, I need to use the phone." And I didn't let him use the phone. And then afterwards, after I get off the phone, and phone shut off like a half an hour before lockdown, he comes to me and tells me, Next time I tell you to get off the phone, get off the phone. And, you know, when he said that, I was like, you know, in my head, I was like, who are you talking to? He's a grown man, though. And I didn't fill out until I was about 18, 19 years old. So I was a very small 15-year-old at that. And I remember I was like, who are you talking to? You know, and you know, had some words with him and went to the bathroom. I went into my cell, closed the door, and started using the bathroom. And I just heard the door creak open, and that was it. He came in, hit me in the head with a plunger.
A plunger?
Yeah.
They have plungers in prison?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It was a rubber plunger.
The bottom was rubber.
Okay.
The handle was, you know, like a wooden plunger.
Did it hurt?
But not bad, you know what I mean? And then we started fighting. I was defending myself. I realized that that's when I realized that I was 15. I might have thought in my head that I was an adult, and I had fights with grown men prior to this, but it was different in the street. It was very different. You know what I mean? I'm dealing with somebody who just came from the feds from doing 15 years. He's in tip-top shape. It was a big difference. I was, you know, he could have, if he wanted to, he could have done whatever he wanted to do, and there was really not too much I could do.
Did you win the
You know what I'm
fight?
saying? Yeah, absolutely.
What happens after a fight like that? Does anyone report it? Do you walk away normal?
No. Yeah. So in my head, I was like, all I was thinking about was, I was like, all right, I'm gonna stab him or I'm gonna cut him. And then there was a Dominican guy that I was cool with, and he came up to me. He said, look, I see what happened. He said, and I knew that was gonna happen before you knew it was gonna happen. He said, and I let it happen. And he was talking to me, giving me like guidance, you know what I mean? And he said, you needed that. And I was, and at this time I'm upset, you know, and he said, he's like, you needed that. He said, I was a knucklehead. I was young. Like I was the only one that didn't realize that there's a big difference between grown man strength and a grown man and a 15-year-old. I thought I didn't think there was much of a difference but size. So I was like, you know, I'll make up for that in heart and all that shit. And I realized it wasn't the same.
Did people respect you after that fight?
Yeah.
Now, the situation you just described with the phone thing, we see in every prison TV and movie thing. Is that accurately depicted? And does that happen a lot where someone wants to use the phone?
Absolutely. So what I didn't know, and this is something the Dominican dude put me down with, he said, you're on the phone talking to your girlfriend. He said, this man just came from federal court. He said he had done 15 years in the feds. He came from immigration court today. He said they gave him a bail. So that man just did 15 years in the feds, thought he was going home, came to another prison. He's been here for 2 years, and he finally got bail. So he's calling his family to let them know, yo, what's going on here? I got bail. Let's hurry up and make this bail before they decide to pull some other bullshit. And once he told me, I looked at it differently. I was like, damn, I don't care who you are. I don't want to see nobody in jail, you know, unless you're messing with kids. Other than that, I don't want to see nobody in jail. So I looked at it a little differently. I almost felt like a little guilty. I was still upset, but I almost felt like a little guilty because I was like, damn, I stood in the way of him going home, you know? And then I could have blew it. What if the police would have seen us fighting, you know what I mean? You know, and the next day he ended up going home. And I was happy for him going home, even though he just kicked my ass.
Yeah,
you know?
these the immigration cases you see a lot of the times guys would serve a long time and then they get picked back up or they have the detainer on them and they got to go right to another jail, which is 9 times out of 10 way worse than their original jail they just came from.
Exactly. That's what 95% of the population there was.
So this is called like what, an immigration jail, you would say?
Immigration holdover is what they called them at the time, INS jails.
Wow. And those are they're not like the best quality of life. I know you said the food's good, but like I was at a private facility in Wyatt in Rhode Island that had like some holdover people for immigration. Just it wasn't a good spot.
Yeah, no.
Like even like the commissary wasn't the best.
And at the time I didn't really have much to judge it off of. You know what I mean? That was my first experience in an adult facility, I thought it was all right.
Now, that 7 years you did, was that the only jail time you've ever done
No, I've done 17 years.
altogether?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
was that all because of that first case? Like you were kept being on probation and violating,
Nah.
or?
I had got indicted by the Attorney General's office for selling drugs. So after my mother was killed, I went back into the streets, selling drugs, getting money. That's where my addiction sort of started, the root of it. And about a year after that, I get indicted by the Attorney General's office for drugs. I get a 5 to 10, and end up serving, like 6 years out of it.
This was federal or state?
No, state attorney.
What kind of
office.
drugs were you pushing?
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
And you were using too?
I was using pills at the time. Yep.
How did that affect your business that you were high? Not at all?
Nah.
Really? Because most people that use while selling, it affects their whole business.
Yeah. So I think. So I wasn't like at a street level. So it was it didn't really have too much of an effect on my me selling drugs. It didn't really take too much of an effect on it.
Was it a big operation, or was it just like small guy, you were working for yourself type of thing?
No, I had people working for me. So at the time, at that period, anything that was pretty much coming into the city was I had my hands on pretty much.
How much do you think you were making?
On a weekly basis, I would say. So Friday and Saturday, I'm guaranteed, like 20,000 a night.
20,000 one night?
Yeah, but so Friday and Saturday, I had people that would come and buy weight specific, So each night is, I'd say between the two nights, 35 to 40,000, and then the rest of the week, maybe 5 to 9 a day.
What's the profit on that in a week if you're grossing 40,000?
Yeah, so where I was at, I'll put it like this: a gram of coke at the time, I was paying $17 for a gram of coke at the time. I was selling it for $150 where I was
for
at.
1 gram?
Yep.
That's how much coke was back then? And a gram is like the little baggies, like a weed gram baggie kind of?
Yeah, so a lot of people, like if you go and buy, what they would consider like a $25 sack or a 50 sack, that's usually like a third of a gram, a fourth of a gram at that time. This was early 2000s or mid 2000s, so yeah.
Are
So
prices like way different now for coke?
I don't even know, to be honest with you. I know it's not that cheap.
Okay.
At this time, there was an abundance of, coke. Prices were cheap.
When someone buys a gram of coke, how long does that last them? Is that like a one-time thing, or can it last?
I don't know, to be honest with you. Just because I've tried coke twice in my life and had horrible experience both. So it just I was like, that's not for me. I don't like being hyper or anything like that. So
You just like the pills.
yeah.
How did the pills make you feel?
It took my pain away. It's painkillers. They call them painkillers for a reason.
Emotional pain or physical?
Any type of pain you're feeling, you won't feel it at that time. Mental, physical, anything, emotional, you're just not going to feel it. They 100% they call them painkillers for a reason.
Did the court give you leniency once you got caught that because you were an addict?
No, they didn't care.
And did they also not care because you had a criminal record to begin with?
Yeah. And so my case was from like February or April, and they didn't pick me up for almost a whole year. So they had been watching me. Like when I got my discovery for my case, it came in 2 record boxes. They were watching everything I was doing, whether it was a crime or not. They were just watching everything. They had pictures of me in a bar, pictures of me at a nightclub, pictures of me going to buy a motorcycle. So they realized they were trying to build more of a case, but they just couldn't do it. Gratefully. So when I went to court and I tried to play the addict role, like they didn't even believe me that I had an addiction at first. They were like, nah, we're not buying that. We knew what you were doing. We knew, you were making money. They were used to dealing with addicts who, were hustling to support their habit, or, make $100 here, $100 there. That's what they were used to. I think in their head, that's what addiction was to them.
And at that point, were you basically on your own? You didn't really have any family ties?
No. So at that time, as soon as my mother passed, me and my older sister, we moved back home to take care of. We had, there's 5 of us, so we had young siblings, 3 and 4 years old. And then once I just felt inside that, all right, this isn't going to end well. I basically gave my older sister, some money. We moved back into my mom's house, so I basically bought my other siblings out of my mother's house and gave them money to get a fresh start in Philly, outside of Philly. So I was there, by myself, but it was we just wanted to get the kids out of there,
Did you have a good relationship with your siblings?
Yeah.
What about now still?
Yeah, I do. So one of my sisters, we actually both started using at that time. Which out of my siblings, she was my closest sibling, but she just passed a couple months ago. She had a fentanyl overdose.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So out of my siblings, she was my closest sibling. That was like my child before I had children.
And you had gotten clean weight years before she passed.
I got clean in 2016.
Was it hard for you to continue to work on being clean and seeing her use?
Yeah, so I wouldn't see her. I told my family, I was like, I don't want to hear nothing until she's ready to get clean. And I felt guilty because, at the beginning, when she was getting high, I would, everybody that was in the city, like I said, I knew 90% of the people that was involved in drugs at all. And I would tell them, look, if I catch any of you serving my sister or drugs coming to my sister, I don't care if it's third party, whatever, coming to my sister, there's going to be consequences to pay. So a lot of times they would be like, yo, I just went over here and I seen your sister. I left the back door open, and she'd be in the house with her friends getting high. I'd show up. That's what type of situation it was. People would call me and be like, yo, your sister's over here. Everybody knew in the city was like, don't, that's his sister. Do not sell her anything. Do not, and I'm sure people did.
Because she was still able to get it.
Yeah, well, so one time that time when my buddy, he called me and was like, yo, I just went in the house and your sister's upstairs. I left the back door open. He said, you got to go now, though, because they're going to realize the back door is open sooner or later. So I shot over there, went inside. My sister's, upstairs. At this time, it's my sister and 2 of her girlfriends. They're in the room getting high. I end up busting in the room, snatch my sister up, take her purse. And I told her, I was like, yo, I'm putting you in rehab. And I dumped her purse out because my thing was, I was like, I'm going to see, I'm dope. There's stamps on the bag. So I said, I'm going to find out whose dope she got. And, there's going to be some consequences to pay. To me, I felt like that was, the way my frustration, the hurt that I was feeling, that's what I was going to do. So I dumped her purse out. It was my stamps. It was my stamps that she had. It was my dope that she had.
Why do you guys stamp your bags?
It's So it's like putting a name on your product. It's Nike, Reebok, Adidas. That's what it is.
But it's also dangerous in a way, like from a legal point of view, because then they can trace every sale you made, essentially.
Yeah, so you switch stamps up also. You know what I mean? But it's, if you have a good name, people, they want to know what dope that is.
So how did it make you feel to see that you were indirectly providing for your sister?
Messed me up. I was crying. That's when I realized that I was doing that to other people's family, and I didn't care because it was other people's family. I didn't like it being done to my family. That's things had started to change at that point. And then I would give my sister drugs, after that. I was like, I don't, she's a female. I don't want her, I don't want somebody to be trying to take advantage of her, I sort of felt like if I give her the drugs, then she doesn't have to go out there and hustle for them or scheme or whatever. You know what I mean? Because my sister, she was slick, and she would tell people knew she was my sister. So they would be like, oh, my brother said, give me this or give me that. And a lot of times they'd be like, all right, and they'd come to me and be like, yo, your sister said that you wanted me to give her this or that, and I'd be like, first of all, I ain't never, when have I ever sent my sister to you to get anything from you or give you anything? Never, but she used to do that a lot too.
Wow. So when do you go to jail for the drug business? What year is that?
I went to jail, I got indicted so I went to jail like 2006, 2007, I want to say.
How old are you?
26.
And you got
25.
How much time for this?
5 to 10.
5 to 10? Did you have to do the whole 10 or?
No, I did. So in Pennsylvania, they give like 5 to 10, 5, you're going to come home unless you, keep on messing up, mess up parole or something.
How did you navigate differently? Because this is your second time going into a real jail setting.
Yeah.
What are some things like you learned that you did differently?
This time I had a lot of money too. So I had been, prior to getting locked up, the week before I was visiting my cousin in the same county prison that I ended up in. So they knew me there. They was like, all right, this is the guy we see that comes in nice cars, and he has a whole bunch of jewelry on when he comes, and every time he comes, he's leaving $500 on his little cousin's books, and so within 24 hours of being there, I had guards already like, yo, anything you need, I got you. They knew I had money. So they were, I was in jail for selling drugs, and I'm in jail selling drugs, within 2 weeks. Things sort of picked right back up.
Does it make a big difference to have money in prison?
Absolutely.
What are some of the things you could get that other inmates can't if you go to jail with money? Everything.
I would eat. I'd have Chinese food. If I've never been like one to drink alcohol, but if I wanted alcohol, I could have anything I wanted.
Were you one of those guys that stopped going to chow hall because you could get commissary food, whatever made?
Yep.
Were you
absolutely.
paying people to cook you meals?
Yeah, I'd pay people to cook me meals. I'd pay people to clean my cell. Anything.
You were supporting the ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely.
How much were you paying like a week to survive in there? Comfortably.
I don't remember, to be honest with you. It wasn't much though. It wasn't much.
But you could get a lot for a little.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would pay the guards to bring me a package. I'd pay them like $250. And it was, they had a certain size. Depending upon the guard, they had a certain size that they would like that package to be. And I would have it'd be packaged up. They wouldn't open it. They would just come bring it to me in my cell.
And that's the drugs.
Yeah, whatever I wanted in there.
How do you know if a cop is willing to do that? Because
they
if
came to me and asked me.
They come to you?
Yeah.
And they say, hey, if you give me money?
He said, numerous guards, probably like 3 or 4 guards, they knew what I was doing already. You know what I mean? They knew. They was like, my cousin had just went to the county for selling drugs. He was, like 16 at the time, and they knew, all right, he's coming to visit him. When he pulls up, he's pulling up in a nice fancy car. He's got this jewelry on. I've never seen this type of jewelry. And when he leaves, every time he's leaving $500 on his cousin's books. So they knew, you know what I mean? They knew they wasn't stupid. And then other inmates in the jail, you know, I'm sure the other inmates was like, oh, that's such and such, you know, I used to hang out with him, and probably lying, you know what I mean? That's just the way jail works. But they literally, when I tell you I wasn't there, you know, not even 48 hours, and I already had guards come up to me and was like, yo, anything you need, just let me know.
What about female cops? Did you have any relationships or anything with them?
So there was a specific female cop that, you know, we sort of, you know, we sort of had, you know, a little thing, but to me, I wasn't like that. That wasn't one of my main things. To me, I was like, that's a very sticky situation. You know, they're going to see my girl come to the prison. There's no way you're going to tell me a female guard isn't going to get jealous, just like a normal girl gets jealous, you know? So at the time I was like, you know, that wasn't something that was huge up on my priority list.
So are the majority of these cops just dirty and looking to make money?
Not the majority. That you know, I won't say that, but there was a lot of them that you know. There was one guy, for instance, you know, he would come and be like, oh, he was hooking up his car at the time. He had, you know, a car that he wanted to hook up, and I pretty much paid for his whole car to get hooked up. But it was just as beneficial for me. You know, I was you know, sending home $1,000 a week on a normal basis.
$1,000 a week you were making in prison?
Yeah. And that's not even, you know, that's just what I was sending home, not to mention what I had on my books and then had in my cell, you know, so it was, yeah.
So how much do you think you would make in a month?
I don't know, maybe in a month, maybe like $5,000 or $6,000.
Which is
somewhere around
some
there.
Crazy money for an inmate to be
Yeah,
making.
absolutely. Like I had everything I needed in jail. I was jail rich, penitentiary rich, you know.
Were you ever investigated by like the
Yeah, hell
inside?
yeah.
What happens?
Listen, I remember one time specific. So the jail was old. It was like an old castle jail. So what I used to do, I used to hide everything in the walls. The walls you could literally pick at. You know, if you got a piece of metal, you could dig to the wall next door. So what I used to do, I used to hide everything in the wall and then like plaster over it. So it looked like, but it wasn't real plaster. It'd just be the dust that I got over there mixed with toilet paper. And it would be a patch in the wall where I remember they knew what was going, you know, people in jail talk, and they also know, all right, we're seeing them taking stuff over here. We see Frank never does this, never does that. You know, he might never go to commissary, but he has more commissary than anybody in his cell, you know. So I remember one time the cops were in there tearing it up, and they were like, just tell us where it's at, make it easy. And I was like, I don't know what y'all talking about. And the dude, he was a bigger guy, and he leaned on the wall, and it was like right next to where I had patched the wall. And I was like, fuck, I hope he doesn't, you know, if he hits that, this isn't like going to RHU, getting restriction. This is getting street case, you know.
So you had a whole criminal enterprise going on in this prison.
Sort of. Yeah, sort of. But there was people that did it before me, people that did it after me.
And it's always
part
going
of
to be
jail.
like that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's never going to change like that. There's always going to be, you put people in that environment that are hustlers.
Yep.
Because you're a hustler.
Yeah.
It's going to happen like that.
Absolutely.
Now, eventually, did you change your mindset, though? Because you were telling me earlier that you started to learn how to cut hair and become a barber.
Yeah, so when I went back to state prison, but even throughout that, when I was in the, you know, I got my license in state prison. All the time I spent in state prison, besides when I went back to do like my last 2.5 years, all that I was involved in drugs, gambling, you know, running poker tables, running sports tickets. I was involved in everything. Besides when I went back and did my last 2.5 years that I had met my wife. We were married. I had got locked up for a case that had happened, you know, like 3 years prior. That my daughter's mom, she was jealous because I left her and said, look, if you don't come home by Friday, I'm calling the cops. And that's what she did. So I ended up getting locked up. And that time that I went back, the last 2.5 years I did, I had changed my life in the streets already. It wasn't like me getting locked up and I'm selling drugs, or me getting locked up and I got an addiction. I had already changed. I had already flipped that switch in my head and said, all right, I'm going to be a family man. This is what I want to do. Meeting my wife, she provided me with a peace of mind for once in my life. I never had that until I met my wife. And then I realized how valuable that was. And, I went to jail. And like I said, it was for something that happened 3 years prior. So I was like, I just want to come home to my family. I'm not going to do anything that I shouldn't do. I'm not involved in anything. And I spent that time, wisely, looking up, how to run a successful business, all that type of stuff. That's what I was into.
That could have really derailed all your progress you were making on the streets too.
Mm-hmm.
If you had let that get you back into the life.
Yeah, I had, there was security captains and people in the security that prior to that, I had already done, 15 years in the state system. They knew me. I had bounced around from jail to jail to jail, and they knew me. And I remember one of the lieutenants, he called me up to his office. He was a security lieutenant. And he told me, he's like, damn, I'm surprised I haven't heard your name. I had been in the jail for probably a year already. He's like, to be honest with you, I'm surprised that I haven't heard your name. He said, because, we hear everything that goes on. He said, and I'm surprised I haven't heard your name. He said, either one of two things. Either you're being very selective at what you do, or you're not doing anything. And I said, well, it's the latter. I said, I'm sure, if you're calling me up here, I'm sure you see that my wife comes to visit me every week, that I'm, she's bringing my child. So I said, I'm sure, and I'm sure you listen to my phone calls, and you can, I guarantee you they're not like they were before, where you're trying to pick out what I'm saying. It's none of that. I said, if this wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't be here. It was, I had made that decision in my head that no matter what, I'm not jeopardizing to be home to my family and my wife ASAP.
And I think that once we see a lot of guys, once they commit to that, they usually stick to that.
Yeah.
But they have to go through so much to flick that switch.
Yep.
How do you think we get individuals to have that mindset before they even get into that position where they're forced to have that mindset?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, they say that the smart people or the wise people learn from the mistakes of others. I think it's either that, but some of us have to make our own mistakes. Some of us, because I know for myself, you could tell me that stove is hot, I'm still going to touch it. I'm going to be like, I'm faster, my hands are tougher, they're weak, they didn't know how to do it. That's what I'm going to think. I'm going to think I'm going to be able to do it differently, and not realizing, no, that's just what comes with it. I think we also have to go through a certain crisis in life. That we have to, like people say, you got to hit that rock bottom. We have to go through a crisis in life and realize, like, this isn't what I want. I'm subconsciously asking for this, even though this isn't what I want. Where we have to go through that. We don't know what the horrible shit is until we go through it.
Yeah, I'm so fucking stubborn. I could have saved myself so much.
Yeah.
Heartbreak, financial stress, freedom from going to prison and everything like that if I just listened to the people around me.
Yeah.
But I'm one of those people like yourself that you have to go through it and you have to figure it out on your own. Because I don't want to know about I don't want to think about like the what ifs if I didn't try it my way, because maybe it could have worked.
Exactly.
You don't know,
Yeah.
So, but I guess sharing these stories of individuals is what hopefully makes a change too.
Yeah. And I also think too is that, all men are definitely not created equally. You put us in a room and you're going to tell who's who very quickly. I think that those of us that want more out of life, that aren't just all right with going with the flow, we have that desire for more. And I think doing illegal stuff is kind of easy. You know, that shit is anybody can go rob a bank. Anybody can sell drugs. It don't take too much to do that. So I think that's like the path of least resistance that we find at first. And then when we realize, all right, this ain't it, we start to realize, all right, let me put this in this energy. Let me dedicate it to a different way. Let me be productive with it. Let me be, first of all, legal with it. We're gonna start to separate ourselves from others the same way, you know, we might have in jail. We're gonna start to do. You know, I think it's just where we decide to focus that energy, whether it's through something positive or whether it's through something negative.
Absolutely. So what's life like for you now? What do you do? What's the 5-year plan? What's your message to others?
So life is dope for me right now. I just celebrated 7 years clean.
Congratulations.
Thank you. A week before you know, my birthday in September. I have a dope family. I got an awesome wife. Children, me and my wife, we have 7 children. I own my own barbershop. That's, you know, one of the businesses that I have.
Well, shout it out, man. Where is your barbershop at?
My barbershop is located in Milton, PA, Against the Grain Barbershop. I have a YouTube channel called Morals Over Money. I interview people that deal with addiction and people that have sort of gone through their crisis in life, you know. That I'm about to hit 200,000 subscribers probably today or tomorrow, which is something dope for me, you know.
Yeah, that's great.
Tomorrow I'm going to a high school and a middle school in New Jersey to speak to kids, to let them know, you know, to share my story and let them know about the dangers of drugs and alcohol and the importance of making the right decisions. Then I'm going to, you know, federal penitentiary in Allenwood, you know, later on in the week. That's the stuff that I enjoy doing the most. For me, like the most gratifying thing is going to the school and speak to the kids. I feel like if I reach them there, hopefully I don't have to talk to them in prison or talk to them in rehab or talk to them in Kensington. I do a lot of work with, you know, with the addicts and homeless in Kensington, which is, you know, the largest open air largest open air drug market. It's crazy the level of addiction that you see there. You walk down the block, you smell rotting flesh. You see people with these like horribly scary ulcers that are, you know, the drugs are literally eating their skin. I just got to meet with the 2 mayoral candidates for Philadelphia coming up here next month, to hear what is their plans. What do you guys plan to do, you know, for the community that is Kensington and the lawlessness that's allowed and encouraged to go down there. People will, you know, shoot up right in front of the cops, literally shoot up in the neck right in front of the police. Police don't say nothing. But they wouldn't allow that to happen on their block, you know. Kids have to step over bodies to take the bus or take the train to school. Imagine that. You know, I wouldn't want my kids being subjected to that. So I got to meet with you know, the 2 candidates to hear what their plans are if they become elected.
Now, Philly has a huge reputation for corrupt officials.
Yep.
I was in prison at the Federal Detention Center in Philly during transit with, I think it was, what was it, the Attorney General or someone that was arrested. It was a black guy, bald head.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, this was 2017. He had just surrendered. He got like a 5-year bid.
Yep.
I forgot his name, but
yeah, I know who he. So I had just seen him in some type of news. I think he was speaking.
I think his name was Eric or something. I don't know. I forgot, but I know it was a big case, and he had just got arrested and indicted and sentenced right then. But I know Philly's like historic for that.
Absolutely. You know, there was just a cop that got arrested for sexually abusing, you know, 44 people in Kensington. You know, the women that are down there dealing with addiction and mental health and homeless. Philly is I lived in New York. I lived in D.C. Philly is a different place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So what's like the 5-year plan for you? What do you see down the road?
So I'm hoping, I'm in the process right now of renovating a building that I bought. I'm going to turn one of the floors into like a sober home, recovery home. That's here. I'm hoping within the next year, everything will be done there. To be honest with you, in the next 5 years, I'm hoping to get out of Pennsylvania. I would like to. I just came from Florida. I just got back. What was it? Friday from Florida. First time there, it was beautiful. I want to move somewhere where I don't have to deal with fall and winter. I get seasonal depression, so I want somewhere where it's nicer. For me, goal wise, I feel like, to be honest with you, a lot of the goals that I had, I checked off my box. And none of them were like, I feel like the majority of my goals had to do with family. When I was young, I didn't want to be an athlete or like a movie star. I wanted to be a good father. And I feel like as long as I'm a good father, everything else will fall into place. You know, I'll treat my wife accordingly because I want my children to see that. I'll be a good community member. You know, I'll be a productive adult. All that stuff will fall into place. Like if I just sort of concentrate on being a good father, I think everything else falls under that umbrella. So for me, there's always, you know, like different little goals that I set for myself that has to do with, you know, being successful and stuff like that. But since I came home in 2015, December 23rd, I came home. We were homeless, me and my wife and my children. We were sleeping on my mother-in-law's floor on an air mattress. I went from there to, you know, buying my first house, then owning different properties, to having a few different businesses where I feel like I've already achieved so much, but I've spent so much time grinding and working, where literally 2 weeks ago, I started taking evaluation of my life, and I was like, all right, I need to. Now the goals that I'm setting have to do more with my family. We're financially comfortable. I need to learn to appreciate my family and my wife and do stuff like that more, because the past couple years, I've just been grinding so much because I felt like everybody else had a 20-year head start on me. I got to get to it. And, you know, it's nice and I enjoy that, but I want to be at every match that my son has for wrestling, for football, you know, the different things that my children have going on. That's what I want to do. That's what's important to me.
What do you think your message is to the people that are listening, watching, tuning in to this? What do you want them to take away from your story?
Yeah, number one, it ain't never too late to, you know, to get on the right path. You know, we all go through stuff in life. We all have times where we feel, damn, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I don't know if I am going to get through this. We all have those times and experiences in life. And once again, we can use, you know, that stuff that happens to us. We can either use it to cry over, or we can use it as motivation, as fuel, to light that fire up under us and do something positive. You know, I always try to encourage people to, you know, to be like three things: be kind, be loving, and be patient. You know, we never know what people are dealing with. We might know the little stuff that we're dealing with, so just imagine what somebody else has going on, you know, because I know multiple times in my life that I thought shit was the worst, the absolute worst. And then I take evaluation of it, and I'm like, damn, somebody would literally and probably is dying to be in that position. You know, every time it rains, I always think of this. I hate the rain, so I'll be like running from my house to my car, and then running from my car into my business. And then I'm like, and I'm complaining about that. I'm running from a dry, warm, nice home to a dry, warm, nice car to a dry, warm, nice business. And that's what I'm complaining about. I have a car, I have a home, I have a business, my family's healthy, we have food in the fridge, we're all right. You know, those are good problems to have. If I'm complaining about, you know, getting a little bit of rain on me, and I always think of that, you know, because when I'm in Kensington doing that work, I see people that are literally huddled up in the corner with a garbage bag over their head, and all you see is their feet sticking out, trying to stay dry. You know, I see that, and I've been in those predicaments in my life before, where we had to boil the hot water to take a shower, where we had to open up the oven to get heat in the house, where we had to light candles because there wasn't no lights. I've been in those positions, so I just try to remain extremely humble and grateful for everything that I have, because at any given time, you know, that next crisis is right around the corner, and I have to be prepared for it, because it's not if it happens, it's when it's going to happen.
And those low times, you know, they make you grateful for the good times, because then you don't get to experience it in the way you do now. It means differently. Of
course. We don't know how bad something is or how good something is until we have the bad of it. You know what I mean? Like, for me, I wouldn't appreciate my wife the way I do and love her the way I do unless I had to deal with my daughter's mom. You know what I mean?
Or unless you're in prison, because you value relationships more. Like me, exactly. I look at relationships way more differently than I did before because I was in jail.
Yeah.
When you don't have access to that.
Exactly.
So now when you're with someone, like, it's not about, like, to me, I'm content with just being with someone. We could be doing absolutely nothing. If we're just hanging out and with each other, I'm okay with that. Yeah, we like doing other stuff, but just like being with that person, because I know what it feels like to be alone and not have that. Exactly. So that's good enough for me.
Exactly. We don't know what that other side is, you know, until we've experienced it. And I think those of us that have experienced it, we're fortunate, you know, because first of all, we've experienced it, we've came out of it, we're alive, you know, we can look at it as a learning point, and as a learning experience, and we can learn to appreciate things, because it's very easy to not appreciate, you know, it's very easy to not be appreciative, and take things for granted, and then, you know, they get snatched away, and we're like, damn, I wish I would have handled that differently. I wish I would have appreciated that a little bit more. We've all gone through that.
Absolutely. Well, Frank, thank you so much for coming out here. Thank you for, you know, driving out here. You have a lovely family. We got to meet your wife and a couple of your kids, and, you know, looking forward to your continued success. And we'll plug all your information, your YouTube channel, your barbershop in the description. And, you know, if you ever need anything, reach out to us, and we're excited to see you grow.
Thank you, brother. I truly thank you for this experience. And, you know, my brother-in-law, Nate, thank you for putting that plug in, Nate. Like I said, he's the one that turned me on to your podcast, and I listened to it, and I like your point of view. I like, you know, your humility. It comes off, and how genuine you are and sincere. It comes off very well.
Thank you, man. Well, shout out to Nate. Yeah. We appreciate that. I read a lot of my comments, and I saw one earlier. It was like a guy said, "Hey, my college roommate just put me onto this," and it feels good that people are sharing it, because that's how it grew. And I've been helping someone recently with their podcast, and I look at their downloads, and they just started. They have 1 or 2 downloads, and I'm like, I was just there in January, and to see it go to where you get 10,000, 15,000 downloads in just a couple days in this short amount of time. Like, people are resonating and they're connecting, and I think it's because it's so different.
Yeah.
Like, to me, this is like therapy with 100%. People that actually lived through your experience. Like, I don't have any licenses. I didn't go to college or anything, but me and you could connect because we're comfortable and we're having a conversation, and we're saying how we feel, and we're talking deep thoughts and stuff, and that inspires all these individuals. So for me, that's what I like about it, because I love, like, that underdog story. I love the people that society counts out to see them win. Yeah. That's what this channel is all about.
Definitely.
But Frank, have a safe trip back. Great. Best of luck with your speaking events the next couple days. And
Thank you.
yeah, we'll be in touch.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you.